welcome to episode number 4 of Defense Against the Dark Arts, I think I'm calling this. Okay, this episode, I'm going to continue on about techniques with brainwashing. But know that there is intentional, it's not just brainwashing, anybody trying to manipulate you. And it's happening everywhere. Everybody sort of does it on lower levels to each other, but that's not what we're worried about. We're worried about the larger scale, serious types of manipulation. And just being aware, that it's happening to you, to everybody, sort of put your guard up, makes you a little less naive. We should also not trust an app. If who is it? Microsoft, one of these guys, or anybody in Silicon Valley puts out these apps to verify news sources. I mean, those are pretty much the sources we should not be trusting, Anyway, don't trust an app to verify or to filter your information or determine if you're being deceived by that information. Don't trust the news. Don't trust politicians. Don't trust advertisers. Don't trust anybody who's trying to convince you of something. That's kind of rich because it sounds like I'm trying to convince people of stuff, but I'm not. I'm just informing you. Make your own decisions. The purpose of this series of videos is to just enlighten people. Being aware of the techniques that are used is fantastic. Like that's a really good defense. If you're not aware, you're toast, man. But if you're, a lot of this is common sense. A lot of stuff a lot of people know. Not everybody though, but I mean, we all fall for manipulation and coercive things. The techniques that are used. It's not just somebody comes up and lies and I caught that lie. That's not how it really works. If somebody does lies to you, who cares? The way manipulators work is it's on a different level. We'll get to it later, but soon. We'll get to it in a couple of minutes, but I just wrote down here a little note. So don't trust those people that I mentioned. Don't trust even your friends, your spouse, your coworkers. Trust your own judgment. Have confidence in your own judgment. Now, what's important here, these are very dangerous words that I'm saying, because they are the same words that a manipulator will say to you about not trusting your friends, your spouse, your family. That's one of the techniques they'll use. But I'm trying to tell you to don't dismiss the opinions of your friends and family. Don't dismiss the opinions of somebody you trust, but then don't blindly believe somebody you trust, because everybody's, you, me, whoever you trust, they're all the same people just trying to get through this. But have confidence in your own judgment. But what's important here is to not dismiss the opinions of people you trust. You need to listen to people that you trust. But trust is something that a manipulator will use to manipulate you. I'm not saying your family or your friends or anybody trying to earn your trust in order to manipulate you, but even if someone is giving you the facts can be framed in a deceptive way. Understanding the techniques that are used of manipulation is the only way, I guess, of defending yourself against it. And I mean, there's different levels. There's systemic, massive, corporation type level. There's government level. There's who's to argue which one's bigger out of those two. But then it works all the way down to different, organizations, right down to the individual. It could be just some person you bump into or some old friend of yours could be manipulating you. And I think it's dangerous. I mean, yes, you need to trust people that you trust, but your trust needs to have limits. I mean, you need to trust your own judgment. Your friends are your friends, but, you got to read them. Same with your spouse, your coworker. The people that are closest to you have a lot of power to manipulate you. Now, this is sort of a topic that I don't want to go into. This is sort of an aside, but, there's a lot of spousal abuse and stuff, and those people are being manipulated by people, the closest person to them. So, in order to say, listen, trust people that, that are close to you. Well, sometimes those aren't people who have your best interest. So to be general, the best thing to do is to have a skill set where you can trust your own judgment. And what's critical about that is question everything and listen to dissenting voices. If somebody's questioning something that you believe, don't dismiss them right away and say they're crazy. Listen, well, is there any merit to what they're saying? Is there any merit? And if there is, there is. If there isn't, there isn't. But it's important to listen, because anybody could be manipulating anybody. You need to use your judgment. And in order to use your judgment, you need to understand how people manipulate other people. But what's important here is to not outright dismiss the opinions of people you know or that you've known for a long time, because this is what manipulators do. They try to get you to not listen. They try to isolate you away from your family, your people you've known for a long time, who might be concerned and looking out for your best interest. But just because somebody's looking out for your best interest doesn't mean that their opinions are based on rational information. They might have been misled or given false information, and their opinion is a rational opinion based on the misinformation that they've been given. So the end result is their opinion might not be right, but the patterns they took to get to it were right from their perspective, because they were given false information. So from their perspective, they think they're doing the right thing, but they may not be. And this is the same with you. This is the same with me. Our own opinions may not be accurate. We may be basing them on a rational methodology against misinformation. And that's, one of the techniques that, manipulators will use is misinformation. That's why misinformation is such a powerful tool. Disinformation. Disinformation is intentionally misinforming people, giving them wrong information. Misinformation is just you got it mistakenly. So the techniques of disinformation, manipulation, persuasion by flattery. I think we could talk about flattery. Flattery is insincere praise. Now, a lot of people are very narcissistic, and they love the adulation, but flattery is not a sincere compliment. It's like who said that? It's like diamonds. The value of diamonds and gold is in its scarcity. So if somebody gives you a compliment, very rarely, that has a lot of value to it. But if somebody's trying to flatter you, especially a stranger, alarm bells should be going up. Manipulative people use flattery all the time. Expressions like speak with honeyed speech, or a forked tongue. Those who speak with a forked tongue sounds like a snake, but it's a metaphor for saying one thing, the one tine of the tongue, and believing something else is the other tine. Tine, is that what you call it? A tine of a tongue when they're forked? Like you got a pitchfork, those are called tines. Anyways, so, everyone lies, they act, they deceive others. It's part of being human, and it's a valid defense against awkward situations. You might need it for your survival, depending on the situation. You're in some shady end of some, city, and, you might have to do some fancy talking to get yourself out of a situation. You're not going to tell the truth. If a lie can get you out of it, you're going to lie, and that's, the right path. There's nothing wrong with that, depending on the situation, right? So regardless of all the bullshit that we hear about lie detection, there is no definitive way to know that somebody is telling the truth or if somebody is lying. Polygraphs do not work. That is why they are not allowed, or they're not used in court. The purpose of a polygraph is to try to scare the target into admitting things, because it doesn't work. So we're going to put all these wires and stuff on you, and we're going to try to get you to fess up, because we know. We're going to try to get you to admit to something, whatever it is. We don't know what you're going to admit to, but we're going to test you and ask you a bunch of questions and see, if you start, right. It's pathetic. But, I was in a polygraph I had a polygraph taken for a job, and the guy's like, "Oh, we found great deception, but what question did we find that great deception in?" I'm like, "Well, if you did find great deception and this machine works, why the fuck are you telling me? Just write it down, hand in your results, you fucking idiot. Why are you giving me this B-roll actor bullshit? Because he obviously couldn't detect anything, and he was just trying to get me to fess something. So, I mean, it doesn't work. It's pathetic. I think there's some, validity. There's a lot of people do body language. Now, body language, if you ever study it at all, it's all about clusters. It's about, and even then, there's tells, right? When you play poker and stuff, you're like, oh, are they, are they sweating? Are they their one nostril flaring? That doesn't work, right? Sometimes you can get somebody might have a nervous twitch, or you might know somebody, you might know them long enough to know that, well, judging from they might be lying, but I mean, it's not conclusive. So even when you study body language, it's not one tell won't tell you if somebody's lying or not. It's a cluster of tells, and even then, you don't know what they said is deceitful, but you think they're being deceitful, and it may not even be what they said is deceitful. They might be thinking things that make them uncomfortable, and they're not even verbalizing it. So it's just making their body act a certain way. So it doesn't work. I mean, and going back to the polygraph, the idiot polygrapher made me sit perfectly still. Fuck. They had cameras on me, and I'm like, well, you think if anything, you'd want me to be, moving so you could get some body language out of me, but no. So, I mean, there's, I don't know, it's absolute garbage. But manipulators are fantastic liars. They can fool most people. I mean, the good ones can fool most people. A lot of these smarmy salesmen think they can manipulate everybody, and most people, they can detect them a mile away, and they're like, God, get away from me, you creep, trying to, flatter me with bullshit, or, just ask me all these questions that normal people aren't asking. The way the masters of manipulation work is they do, like I started saying earlier, is they do a process. They gain your trust. They, I don't know, I keep playing with this stupid thing, lens cap. So they gain your trust. They pretend they're in your tribe. They pretend they share your values, your beliefs, potentially your religion, whatever. I mean, I think like interrogators will do that if there's some creepy, somebody who chopped up, some person, right? And they're interrogating them. They're like, yeah, well, that scummy person deserved to be chopped up, right? The interrogator, trying to loosen up to get the target to lower the defenses, right? So in that case, you want them to catch the people who chop up people. But I'm just saying, these are the techniques that are used. The manipulator will try to get the target to believe that they have the same values, the same ethics. And then depending on the play, it's really complex, but depending from there, they might create a tensor or tension. Is that the word? Tensor? To make the person, since you both have the same values, they might make you feel awkward if you question what they're saying, because now they've established that you guys have the same values. And if you don't believe what they're saying, then it sort of implies that they are betraying their own values. And people have this consistency thing where they don't want to betray their own values. So there's a lot of different ways that they can sort of tension and put pressure and start subtly steering the person to even internally in their own minds going through these tensions and start to, start believing, what the master level manipulators are doing, right? The master manipulator will be watching the target the entire time, and they will be reading to see if they need to change tactics. And there's two major tactics that they use. One is the push and one is the pull. The pull, they pull you towards them with the carrot, to get you to lead them exactly where they want to go, because now they can lead you. And if that doesn't work, they might try to push, with the stick. Now that could be, again, tension or discomfort, but it's less accurate to push, because it's like when you push a marble or it could go any direction, but when you're pulling, you have it on a string and you're pulling it, you can lead it exactly where you want it to go. So it's preferable for a manipulator to lead the target as opposed to pushing them. But if they're not getting anywhere by leading them, they might try other alternatives, because they got nothing to lose, right? Yeah, so they'll prepare you way before they even try to present their message or narrative or what they're trying to do. Like they'll prepare you by gaining your trust and all this, we're on the same level and all this other kind of stuff. And it's a long time before they even, the preparations before they even, divulge their narrative or their message or what they're trying to, implant in you. And sometimes even then they won't. What they've done now is they've unfrozen your brain, made you receptive to believe what they're going to say, and then they might lay out blocks, clues, things for you to assemble in your own mind and come to the conclusion that they've made obvious if you put together the things they've left behind or left for you to assemble, the fragments of information that can only go together one way, and then you've come to your own conclusion based on the information that they've given you, and they haven't told you anything, so now you've decided on your own, what this is. Now, once that happens, you weren't told anything. You came to the conclusion on your own. Now, that is grade A level stuff. Now, you've come to the conclusion that they want you to come to without telling you to come to that conclusion. But it's a long grift. It's a long road. Yeah. So flattery is often the first clunky, awkward step the low level manipulator will use, like the smarmy salesman will use to try to manipulate you from the get-go. But even the master manipulator might use that technique if they're assessing you and they read you and they see that you are responsive to that type of thing, because you have that, maybe the show business, low self-esteem type thing, where these people, the actors and that type of people who are they're probably their parents didn't give them enough attention, or maybe they were social outcasts there, or they have low self-esteem, or perhaps all the above, or just maybe there's whatever reason. But some people are more, they crave the vacant, empty flattery. They don't care. They just want the flattery, right, for whatever reason. And so the manipulator like, oh, this isn't easy, I can jump right to that. And smarmy salesmen do that to people all the time, because they just assume that everybody's like that. And obviously not everybody's like that. Maybe if you're in Los Angeles, right, everybody's like that. But in the normal world, not everybody's like that. Most people are suspicious of the flatterer. But these concepts of flattery and manipulation are truly ancient. I mean, 2,400 years ago, one of the greatest humans, Socrates, had a quote. I wrote it down here. Flattery is like friendship in show, but not in fruit. Now, I'm sure he said that in Greek, but flattery is like friendship in show, but not fruit. I think it was a metaphor for blossoms in fruit trees. In show, the flowers are looking pretty. That's the show. But the bees need to pollinate the blossoms to bear fruit. But if they don't bear any fruit, they will wilt away and drop off. So the fruit is the friends, and the impotent blossom is the flatterer. I'm pretty sure that's what old Socrates meant by that. Could be wrong, but that's what I get out of it. But I used to have bees, so my mind always goes towards pollination. Other techniques used are, distorting the facts. They might try to confuse you, or, with their expert knowledge, knowledge that you don't have. They have expert knowledge, or they might give you information overload, overwhelm you, or obfuscate. Obfuscate. They might try to obfuscate. Let's look up the definition of obfuscate here. The obscuring or hiding of the meaning of the communication by making the message difficult to understand. So there you go. Obfuscation is obscuring. Obfuscation, obscuring, is hiding the meaning of the communication by making the message difficult to understand. Obfuscation may be intentional or unintentional and is accomplished with circumlocution, and the use of jargon and the use of argot, of limited communicative value to outsiders. Okay, well, now we got some more words I'm going to look up here. So, circumlocution. Circum means to go around, like circumnavigate. Loqui means to speak. So to speak around, to circle around a specific idea with multiple words rather than directly saying it. Being vague or evasive, a studied indirectness or evasiveness. That's circumlocution. And let's look up, what's that other word? Argot. It's spelled argot. It's argot, I think. A specialized vocabulary or set of idioms used by a particular group. The conventional slang of a class, originally that of thieves and vagabonds, devised for purposes of disguise and concealment. Cant slang, those vagabonds. Secretive language or conventional slang peculiar to thieves, tramps, and vagabonds. Flash. What the hell? Flash. Argot. So that's argot. So that old vagabond tramp lingo, the secretive speak. That's part of obfuscation. Let's go back to obfuscation. The obscuring or hiding of information. Eternal. Okay. It may be intentional or unintentional as accomplished with circumlocution, the use of jargon, and the use of argot, of limited communicative value to outsiders. So they're going to speak, they can be vague, evasive, speak around the word, the concept without actually saying it, and they're might use a secretive language, conventional slang to thieves, tramps, and vagabonds. Okay, so they're a bit of a side there. So they're also going to use intimidation. Intimidation's a common thing, you know. There's a lot of different ways they can intimidate you. It's hard to intimidate a confident person. So one of the ways they'll do that is they'll try to attack your confidence. Negative language, sarcasm, try to make you feel inferior, criticizing you, judging you. My battery's about to go dead here. I'm going to restart. Okay. Yeah, so they'll try to intimidate you, and the way they get to intimidating you is by wearing down your confidence. And a way to do that is to try to make you feel inferior, judge you, criticize you, not believe anything you say, minimize your problems. These are common tactics. So if you feel that somebody's trying to do that to you, then they might be trying to weaken your confidence in order to be able to intimidate you, in order to manipulate you. It's quite a... Now, I mean, there's a lot of manipulative people that just do this instinctively, you know. There's some real winners out there, but yeah. So as I was thinking about this stuff, it got me thinking about, keeping on the straight and narrow, and then I started thinking, well, the straight and narrow, that is actually a pretty brainwashy term, right? It's a very manipulative expression. Keep strictly to the straight path. Don't meander off of it, even to the point of making your path wide, right? Keep straight to your destination. Don't go off your path. Don't meander. Don't let it go, wider than what you just keep your feet, in line. It's like, that's the interpretation I got from it. But then I started thinking about it, and it's, the broad road and the narrow road. And then there's that old, biblical Matthew, whatever, what the Bible actually says, Matthew here, 7:13-21. Enter through the narrow gate, for wide is the gate and broad is the road that leads to destruction, and many enter through it. But small is the gate and narrow is the road that leads to life, and only few find it. Watch out for false prophets. They come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly they are ferocious wolves. By their fruit you will recognize them. Do people pick grapes from thorn bushes or figs or from thistles? Likewise, every tree bears good fruit. Okay, blah, blah, blah. So, yeah. So that's kind of relevant to what we're talking about with the whole fruit. Socrates. By their fruit you will recognize them. Watch out for false prophets. They come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly they are ferocious wolves. So keep on the straight and narrow brainwashing technique to try to brainwash the followers. And these guys were wise. Watch out for false prophets. They come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly they are ferocious wolves. I mean, who would know the ferocious wolves better than the wolves, right? So I should go back and read that again, look for propaganda techniques. Maybe I should read the Bible again and look at it from fresh, new, brainwashing, manipulation perspective. Because these guys knew about the techniques, obviously, because they're writing about it. Watch out for false prophets. They come to you in sheep's clothing. They're talking about, the flatterer, the manipulator. But they were also using this as to try to indoctrinate people to not listen to people who would argue against whatever the Bible was telling them, right? So this is our beliefs. This is what anybody who argues against this is a false prophet. Well, maybe they're the false prophets, right? The three roads, in French it's les trois chemins de l'éternité, right? The three roads to eternity. Straight is the gate and narrow is the way. It's kind of creepy, but the concepts are not quite the same as what I initially thought. Keeping on the straight and narrow is, what I said, staying on the path without deviating. It is meaning that, but it also, in the Bible, where I think this expression came from, it's all about taking, well, I guess it means the same thing, but taking the one road, not taking any other roads. There is only one narrow path, right? So do exactly what we're telling you to do. Don't do anything else, or you will risk, the worst fate that they could come up with, right? Like, great manipulation in the Bible. It's using fear and horror and terror and eternal, try to scare the shit out of people to get them, to give them 30% of their salary. It's fuck. There's some good, there's some positive values, in religion, and there's a lot of negative stuff. It is, I know it might piss off a lot of people watching this, but pull that Band-Aid off, man. That's the real world we're living in here. That's the whole point of what I'm talking about, is to try to free people from manipulation. And it's hard when you've been indoctrinated since, a young child into a religion. The ground under your feet is not stable because you don't know what to believe anymore, because now unless you're still, believing that stuff. But if you're not, then you're like, well, what the fuck? What values are important? What values aren't? You're still going to have a lot of people, I'm convinced, are wired with certain values. Most people are generally good. You don't need religion to make you good. The people who think that are probably the darkest motherfuckers out there. Like, really? You need somebody from a book to tell you not to fucking kill somebody in order for you not to kill them? Otherwise, you just be out there fucking chopping their heads off and shit? Like, really? That's the kind of person you are? No. I know a lot of people, and none of them do that, and a lot of them aren't religious, and I don't know. Maybe, I don't know, you might argue that there's different places in the world where they do that. Like, you go to Africa and, in the West Africa, where they do chop up people and they do eat people and they do all kinds of horrific stuff over there before they, there's that, what's that, General Buck Naked in, it's not Sierra Leone, Ivory Coast. I can't remember. No, somewhere in West Africa. This guy's name's, Google him, General Buck Naked. And this guy would chop up, it had to be an innocent 12-year-old boy, and they would eat him before they go to battle. And what was their battle? Probably just, hacking up some other dudes, right? So these are the values. Now, You might say, well, all humans would be like that without the religion. No way, man. No way. No way. All right, so what's my point here? Think for yourself. Have some confidence in your judgment. The whole point of this is to try to give people more confidence and not be manipulated, and be aware when people are trying to lower your self-esteem or attack you. And that's not just there's a lot of different techniques they're going to use. And if you're aware of these techniques, you start seeing them, you're like, oh, that guy's trying to manipulate me, or that girl, whoever that person is trying to manipulate me. So, and of course, they're going to go for your confidence. So you need to think for yourself. You need to be confident in your values. You need to be confident in, what you believe. And, but a lot of people have been brainwashed and have faulty values, so that's kind of a slippery, slidey thing too. So have confidence in your judgment, but know that we don't know everything, and our assumptions can easily be wrong. Like, that's the whole point of assumptions. They're heuristics. They are not accurate. They're just sort of approximations, best guesses that we use and go, I guess this, I'm going to use that, and I'm going to go. It's not fact, it's just a guess. But going back to the straight and narrow, there is times when it's better to stick to the prescribed path. If you're pulling rods out of a nuclear plant, there's probably not too much room for deviation there, right? But this is where your discretion comes in. This is the whole thing again. It's all about discretion, confidence in your decision making. But also, you don't want to be overconfident, and this is where the expert syndrome comes in. When people start thinking they're experts, they become closed-minded. So you need to know when to be open to new information and when to be closed to new information. I mean, you should be generally open. You should have the skill set where you can allow all information to flow into your head, and then you filter out the garbage, the stuff that you know is garbage. The way our society seems to be going now is they're censoring everything. And that's an easy way to manipulate people, is to have no voices of dissent. So in all situations, we should have voices of dissent. And if there's something wrong with that voice of dissent, we could easily shoot it down with logic and, a rational argument, proving that they're wrong. If you can't prove they're wrong, then maybe you're wrong. Maybe we're wrong. So this is all about, it's not polarized black and white. It's very mushy. It's grayscale. It's complicated. It's complex. It's a complex system. And so you don't want to, I know people might be lazy thinkers and just want to jump to this. I believe that, or I believe this, or I don't believe that anymore, so now I believe this. When I was a little kid, going back to the Bible, my mom was, get me to read she didn't make me read the Bible, but, I read it and I was like, I believe that stuff on us. And then when I read the whole Bible, I'm sitting there, what a load of horse shit. I actually sat down and read the whole thing. I'm like, Jesus, this is a bunch of bullshit. And it pissed me off, because I realized most people don't read the whole book, and they're, being manipulated. So I can't remember what my point was. Yeah. So this is, there are times when it's good to stick to the prescribed path. And there's also times when, you need to ask yourself, are there valid reasons to stick to the path so strictly? And if there's no valid reasons, then you can go explore. You can make your path a little wider. Maybe don't go off the path. Maybe go off the path. I don't know. But, it's a big world out there. And nobody really has the answers. And it's exploration, I think, is what it's all about, being alive and being human, But it doesn't mean you pull everything off the rails either. It doesn't mean if something's working and that works, doesn't mean you're going to yank it off the rail and I'm gonna flip this thing over just because I want to take a different path. No, exploring is one thing. Go explore, gather information. See what's going on. But I don't want to dwell too much on religion, because it's it's easy pickings, but religion is these people have been honing these skills of manipulation for hundreds of years anyways. And these are the techniques that are being eluded by the modern day billionaire hucksters the politicians, the cabal of news media, PR marketing, and and the news media people are sadly now academia even. The billionaire, the Silicon Valley billionaires and their minions are they're ideological idiots. Their skill set allowed them to create these monster corporations, but they haven't prepared them in any way for the power that they now have. And these guys are going off on ideological things, throwing hundreds of millions of mega dollars towards lobbies in order to manipulate the world. Like how recently, just the other day, the time of filming here, they shut down Parler. Now is Parler responsible? Is the platform responsible for the information? That's what everybody was arguing about Twitter and Facebook. And Silicon Valley said, no, they're not responsible. How could they be responsible for the live streaming of the murders that happened on Facebook, or all the violence that's been organized on Twitter? They're saying the platforms are not responsible. Yet when Parler started gaining, they were number one. Amazon, Apple, and Google conspired together to shut them down. Like, that's ridiculous. Parler is the number one competitor to Twitter, and Amazon has a contract with Twitter, so Amazon pulls Parler off their server. Like, this is just, and they're using their own values. Their own values are the platform is not responsible. So when you start seeing stuff like this, there's some like that, as alarm bells are going. I don't care what people believe politically. I mean, you look at this logically and you're like, this is insane. But there doesn't appear to be, there's no system in place to counter the mega dollars these guys are throwing at the lobbies to control the world. They're beyond nations. They're global. They're globalists. They don't care about what happens. Well, they do care. They try to control what happens in individual countries, but their scope is planet-wide. And that's even scarier because they don't care about, one stupid country's laws, right? So all we can do is look at the techniques that are being used and keep an eye out for stuff like that. And that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to keep giving little videos like this on the techniques that the manipulators will use, and so we can defend ourselves against the grand facade, because a lot of people, surprisingly, are buying it. They're believing it. And that's what's terrifying. It's, you see a smarmy salesman out there, working some person. You think, well, whatever. But then when that person believes them, that's when it gets scary. And that's what's happening now. And these people are out there, they're contradicting themselves 180% or 180 degrees. And people are like, okay, red is black. Okay. Yellow is green. Okay. No, black is orange. Okay. People are just like believing this. Like, they're going on. It's like George Orwell. But I don't understand them trying to manipulate people is one thing, but people believing it is what I find more scary. So that's why I'm going to keep making these videos for whatever. I don't know. I have a lot of stuff I could talk about, but that's probably it for now. My mouth is getting super dry. So, and my camera's overheating. Sony. Go figure, eh? Maybe tomorrow or whatever, I'll use the Canon. So, see you next video. If my eyes are in focus.